It was the year 1810. Europe found itself fighting in the ongoing Napoleonic Wars when Charles August, the adopted Crown Prince of Sweden, suddenly died after falling from his horse. Just a few months shy of his death, he was adopted by Swedish King Charles XIII. Charles XIII had been King of Sweden since June 6, 1809, and despite being married for 35 years, he had no legitimate heirs. When the Crown Prince then died in 1810, the search for a new heir began. The Swedish nobility, now looking for an heir, set their eyes on Jean-Baptiste Bernadotte. Bernadotte was born in Pau, France, in 1763. At 17, he joined the French Royal Army and soon rose through the ranks. He showed off his military skills following the outbreak of the French Revolution and the following Napoleonic Wars. By 1794, he was made a brigadier general. In 1805, he played a significant role in French victory at the Battle of Austerlitz. With his military accomplishments, his diplomatic skills, and thanks to the engagement of Karl Otto Mörner, a member of parliament, Jean-Baptiste Bernadotte emerged to be the excellent candidate for the Swedish throne. After political negotiations, Bernadotte was elected by the Swedish Riksdag, which is the parliament, as the new Crown Prince of Sweden. Upon his adoption, he took up the name Charles John and converted to Lutheranism. Charles John quickly became the most popular and most powerful man in Sweden and acted as a de facto ruler of the country. In 1812, Charles John ironically found himself at war with Napoleon when the French invaded Swedish Pomerania. The Crown Prince allied with Russian Tsar Alexander I in what would result in the sixth and final coalition war and the defeat of Napoleon. Charles XIII died in 1818 and Charles John became king of not only Sweden but also Norway. Earlier in 1814, Charles John had forced Danish King Frederick VI to cede Norway to Sweden, mainly in order to expand Sweden's territorial holdings and influence, but also in order to balance power in Europe after the Napoleonic Wars and stop Denmark from allying with France again. With Charles John's ascension to the throne, the House of Bernadotte was founded. The House of Bernadotte remains the ruling dynasty of Sweden up until this day. Jean-Baptiste Bernadotte had no royal background and came from a relatively insignificant family. His earliest known ancestor, Chandu du Poët, was a shepherd. Bernadotte's father, Henry, was a local prosecutor who once had been imprisoned for his debts. Now in today's video we will focus on how Swedish the monarchs of the House of Bernadotte really are. Before we start off this video, please note that this video is just made for entertainment purposes and is not meant to be taken too seriously. In addition, I also place a further disclaimer at the end of this video after I reveal their ancestry. Charles John, whose regnal name was Charles XIV John, married Desiree Eugenie Clary back in 1798. Desiree, or Eugenie as she was usually called within her close circle, came from a wealthy silk manufacturing family. As such, both Charles XIV John and Queen Desideria, as she was known in Sweden, have a French background. This makes their son, who became Oscar I upon his father's death in 1844, also of 100% French descent. Oscar I reigned from 1844 to 1859. His reign is viewed as more liberal than the one of his father. When the First War of Schleswig broke out, he supported Denmark with troops during their battle against Prussia. The war ended with a Danish victory, but eventually the Danes were defeated in the Second Schleswig War. Oscar shifted towards an alliance with the United Kingdom and the Second French Republic out of fear of losing territory to Imperial Russia. Oscar died on July 8, 1859, and was succeeded by his son Charles. Charles became known as Charles V in Sweden and Charles IV in Norway. Charles's mother was Josephine of Leuchtenberg, a granddaughter of Empress Josephine. Through her father, Napoleon's stepson, Josephine is 50% French. Her mother was Princess Augusta of Bavaria, a German princess. As such, Charles XV and IV is of 75% French and 25% German descent. Despite initial skepticism, Charles XV and IV would prove to be one of the most popular and successful rulers out of all the Scandinavian kings. He respected his position as a constitutional monarch and issued many reforms. One of them was the law of legal majority for women in 1858. Like his father before him, Charles was also a supporter of Scandinavism. Most importantly, Charles was the first Swedish monarch of the House of Bernadotte to be born in Sweden and raised in the Lutheran faith. He was affectionately called Kronkalle by his people, which translates into Crown Charlie. Charles died on September 18, 1872, and was succeeded by his brother Oscar, as he had no surviving legitimate heirs. Being full brothers, that makes Oscar II, as his regnal name was, 75% French and 25% German. When Oscar II took over the throne in 1872, he quickly realized how difficult the union between Sweden and Norway was. Despite that, he began learning the Norwegian language. His reign saw the peaceful dissolution of the Union in 1905, in which he played an important role. He supported that the established throne should not go to any Swedish prince and saw his grandnephew Prince Karl of Denmark be crowned King of Norway. Oscar II passed away on December 8, 1907, and was succeeded by his son Gustav. Gustav's mother was Sophia of Nassau. She had a little Dutch blood, being a descendant of the stadholders of the Netherlands, but other than that, she was German through and through. This means that King Gustav V of Sweden was 37.5% French and 62.5% German. His reign saw the First and Second World War, as well as the rise of parliamentary rule. He started off as a near autocrat in 1907, as he was both the head of state but also the head of government. The de facto power, however, was with the prime ministers of Sweden. Gustav was said to have been a Nazi sympathizer prior to the outbreak of the Second World War. Looking back, these connections most likely were only for political reasons, and Gustav tried to convince Hitler for better treatment of Jewish people. Gustav V died on October 29, 1950, at the age of 92, becoming the oldest Swedish monarch in history. He was succeeded by his son, who became Gustav VI Adolf. His mother was Princess Victoria of Baden, a granddaughter of the first German Emperor Wilhelm I. This makes Gustav VI Adolf 18.75% French and 81.25% German. Gustav VI Adolf became a popular king mostly due to his down-to-earth personality and his many interests, especially in archaeology and botany. This led to a widespread support of the monarchy, although it is worth mentioning that it was under his reign that constitutional changes were started to be made in order to undermine the monarch's political power. At the time of his ascension, Gustav was a few days shy of his 68th birthday, making him the world's oldest heir apparent to a monarchy. This record was only broken in 2016 by Charles III, then still Prince of Wales. Gustav died on September 15, 1973, passing the throne to his grandson, Karl XVI Gustav, the current monarch of Sweden. Karl XVI Gustav is the son of Prince Gustav Adolf and Princess Sibylla of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. Through his parents, he is left with roughly 5% French and 95% German blood. He is a descendant of Queen Victoria through both of his parents. Karl XVI Gustav just celebrated 50 years on the throne a few weeks ago. He came to the throne at 27 and saw the 1974 Instrument of Government come into action, which removed the monarch's last powers held. His reign also saw the establishment of a new law for absolute primogeniture in the line of succession come into place. This made his eldest child, Victoria, Crown Princess of Sweden. This was the first time in Western European history that this change was made. Karl XVI Gustav is married to Sylvia Sommerlath, a commoner with German and Brazilian roots. This makes Crown Princess Victoria of Sweden, who is most likely to become Queen of Sweden one day, 2.5% French, 72.5% German, and 25% Brazilian. She married Daniel Westling in 2010. He has mostly Swedish and a little bit of Finnish ancestry. This would make their eldest daughter, Estelle, who's most likely going to inherit the Swedish throne one day, the first monarch of the House of Bernadotte with Swedish blood. Now obviously the House of Bernadotte has now been on the throne of Sweden for over 200 years. Since King Charles XV, all monarchs have also been born in Sweden. It is safe to say that the members of the House of Bernadotte have well integrated themselves since their arrival from France. They speak Swedish as their first language, represent their country's traditions, and most importantly, identify themselves as Swedish.